All right. So due October 8th, right, is the first project one. Um, as was just asked, you don't need to do weekly updates. No, I just want to see where you started and where you were afterward. And the starting has to do more with if you are definitely doing your own custom project. I need to see where you were beforehand, if it was a game jam or a project from a previous class. And for this project, you're usually starting from one of these WebGL builds that everyone has access to, like so karting, first-person shooter, and platformer, right? So you can just link to one of these. You don't need to explain. You're saying I'm starting off with the first-person shooter micro game as is provided by Unity. You don't need a explanation of the state of things, but you might want to really explain. So, for example, if you're messing with the guns and what they're shooting, you would really want to explain that I really changed how the guns were acting, what bullets they were shooting, what their damage was like. So if you use the guns beforehand, that is enough for you to understand like what the changes were as my guns as they currently are. In particular, you might want to pay attention to like the grenade launcher and the shotgun. So that's where if you're starting off from scratch. Now, if you're continuing next project, we can you can think about, oh, I got the guns to this state in project one, and here's my build from project one, and this is what the guns are doing, and here's where I got them for project two. So that would be the idea of the before and after. So continuing from last class, um, let me shrink the participant panel up so I get more screen space. All right. So the main player is this Cart Classic player here. On it, like all game objects, has a transform. In this case, has a rigid body because it's a lot of the a lot of the mechanic. A lot of these scripts are interacting with the cart on a physics level, not just like changing a position over time, kind of like animation. It's like adding accelerations and gravity and drifting and all types of stuff that are um, doing physics calculations. So that's why there's a rigid body on this object. And so we're going to be focusing on this arcade cart script for this class. But just know that there's some other scripts that are doing stuff. So maybe the turning of the wheels, maybe this animation system is doing that as the user input's coming through. But last class I was messing around quite a bit with this keyboard input. In fact, you can see that there's a jump now. Um, and I was kind of explaining how this keyboard input is inheriting from base input, that there's a struct in here that we have to change. So not a full class, doesn't have methods. It's just a data structure, more complicated than a primitive, than like a bool or a float. In this case, there's three or four parts to it. We added the fourth, the jump. And yeah, that's all we did for base input and keyboard input. Since that struct changed, we can now designate what our jump button name is. And in this, we're grabbing from the input manager. Um, and I kind of showed that it's under input. And so, since a lot of this is just, you don't need to like hard code all your things, for example, left to right, you could just reference this horizontal axis to see how much the user is pressing left or right. And in particular, if they're VR controllers or gamepad controllers or something that has a capacitance where you can measure how strong the push is from 0 to -1 or 0 to 1. But a keyboard would just be -1 for left and 1 for right and 0 for nothing. In this case, we added jump, and it's going to be the space bar. But that's by default. You can change that if you want to. So the final step was I did start hunting through this very large script, and I did see that it's we're going to have to start looking in this move vehicle method, right? So I looked at where it was being referenced, and up here under fixed update, fixed instead of not regular because we're dealing with physics, we check if there's input. It looks like it's messing around with some of the suspension and how the wheels are and how the cart is balancing on the wheels and stuff, but I don't really care about that. It's figuring out if the carts are touching the ground. This I might have to like read into more. But what I really saw was the move vehicle. This is where user input is checked, and that's why I said, oh, we need another parameter. We need to send in jump into here because that's where everything else is being checked. If you're accelerating, braking, what have you. So if we can move, we go run this method to see how we should change the move of the cart. And I'm just going to look at this method real quick. While in the air, fall faster. All right. So we might want to tweak that later. Like you might want to stay in the air longer, but that's not like necessary just to get us going. But the move vehicle is going to be, so that's why we're checking if you're jumping. So all I want to do is notice how I'm moving around through the scripts. I'm using a lot of checking these references. This is really handy in Visual Studio. And I'm right clicking and I'm saying go to definition. Like I don't manually move through scripts. I do a lot of jumping around to speed up my workflows. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to figure out what jump is doing. So let's just see if I press a space bar, if I can get like a print statement. So in a lot of different development environments, it might be print or print.debug. And in the case of Unity, we're going to use our debug class to the Unity engine log. And I'm going to print, just to start with, I'm just going to print this bool that's coming in called jump. I just want to see if this bool changes when I actually press the space bar, which is mapped to this jump. So I press the Control S to save the script. Let's go back to Unity. Let's have it recompile. And let me turn off. Last time I pressed play, the music just blasted through. So let me go hunt around. Maybe main camera, audio listener. Perfect. I'm going to turn that off. I don't need the audio part of this experience as I'm testing. Another option for you might be to just turn off your speakers, but then I wouldn't be able to hear if students have questions. So I just turn off the audio listener. All right, so I'm going to open up the console, and I'm just going to press space a little bit and then pause it. So we're getting a lot of messages through. It looks like my console is being spammed because I turned off the audio listener. So since it's really messing up my debug experience, I'll turn it back on. But usually there's like an audio mixer. Otherwise, I'll just go into my Windows audio mixer and I'll just.
Hey, Professor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Michael. I'm the student that was actually asking about this jump function. And I was just looking through the code as you were testing this, and I noticed that uh, the the move function that we're looking at, the no fixed update. Sorry, in fixed update, it checks how grounded you are in a percentage by checking for each wheel and then subtracting and like doing like math with it.
Okay.
Um, so
What line of
um,
code was that?
it if you look at the go to fixed update,
Yeah, so on the left, if you have a number here, you can just say the
yeah,
number.
298. Um,
298.
it
Mm-hmm.
should ask, yeah, it asks for how grounded each wheel is, and then it calculates a grounded percent on line 389. And something that I'm thinking is we could check how grounded they are to make sure that they have like at least a certain amount of grounded, like if they have two wheels grounded or something like that, to enable them to jump in the first place.
Right. Yeah. So that's the next. First, I just want to see
Yeah.
if I can get jump going. But yeah, you don't want.
Oh yeah. Wait. Actually, where did you put that debug message? I want to follow along with this. I'd missed that.
Um, so here, 419, the first line of move vehicle.
Okay, that's on 419.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
But yes, you're right. We do eventually we'll need to see that we are grounded before we add a vertical acceleration. Um, but yeah, let me just first get there. So I think if I leave the audio listener on, but I found where this audio source is. Basically, I searched. So if I unclick that, notice how there's a lot of stuff here, and I might not be able to find my audio or what's playing audio. So I just searched on audio, and I did happen to find a game object that had audio in the name. And so I'm just gonna like tank off the volume and click play, and hopefully I won't get these mass messages down here, and I won't have to hear the audio. So, did I not? I didn't turn on audio listening. It's under main camera, audio listener. All right. So another good thing is clear on play. I turn this on so that this all gets wiped out every time you click play to make sure you're not checking old messages. That sucks. The audio's like super high. I'll just kill it. I give up. I'll just kill it through Windows. All right, it's gone. So I'm getting a whole bunch of false, right? That's it. If I click on it, you can see that it's coming in from the move vehicle line 419. That's where I put it. Normally, this is supposed to stay. The your position in the list should always be at the bottom, the most recent. Um, Give me 1 second. That should be the default behavior, and I've never. Hold on 1 second. Unity console not showing most recent. Hmm. It's definitely different behavior I'm used to. Oh well, I'm gonna collapse them then. So collapse means take all the same messages and regardless of their timestamp, just put them into one. So you see, like I have false messages. I have 3,400 of them. So remember, the fixed update is happening every. I think it was 200th of a second or whatever, so you're going to get a lot of these same messages. So anyway, false. Notice that the numbers are growing. I don't care. So I just press space and I got a true. And as I am holding it down, it's increasing. So this is one thing I wanted to see is there's like three different inputs. There's um, on button down, basically when you first press it. There's on button as you're holding it, like rapid fire, and on release when you release it. So notice that the false is increasing up here, and as I hold down space, the true is increasing. So yeah, we're going to get a lot of true messages. So first off, we only want to take the first one that comes in, and then as Michael was saying, we only want to check as the vehicle is grounded. But my first thing I want to figure out, yep, my messages are coming in. So this is good. I know that I could trust this bool, this jump coming in, so that's great. So I'm just gonna turn that off. Okay, so um, let's go up. Where was that? So up here,
Professor, actually, I have a question.
yeah,
For mine, it's just constantly outputting jump in the console and not distinguishing with the button. Am I missing something?
it just says jump, not true or
Yeah,
false.
yeah, it doesn't specify.
Oh,
Like I'm looking at your code and it looks
are you doing
the
something
same.
like this?
Oh, I see. Yes, I do have it as a character.
That's just a
That is my
static
bad.
string. Yeah.
I see.
So without the quotes, that's the actual variable, not just
All
a
right,
text.
got it. For some reason, I was thinking that debug only worked with text, so but I knew it was supposed to be a variable. But I was like, I'm just gonna put in text and see what happens. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, it's still fun. Yeah, it's completely fine. So my next thing is at least now I can read in when I'm pressing the space bar. So the next thing is yeah, let's look at can we know if they're grounded or not. So what line of code was that where it's grounded? Here we go. Ground count. So every time we go through fixed update, ground count gets set to 0. Then we see if each of the wheels are grounded. Um, and besides, so this is some, I guess, some bool on what is are each of these. I'm guessing it's their own class. Okay. Oh, the colliders. Okay. The actual physics colliders for each wheel. Gotcha. Um, so let me go back down to fixed update. Okay. So each of the physics colliders has a built-in bool. It looks like that says whether the wheel is currently colliding with something, anything. So that's our first hint, whether it might be grounded or not. But apparently that's not enough because it can collide with other stuff, not necessarily the ground. So an additional check is it looks like it's shooting out a raycast. So and then if that raycast come back, it's true. So raycasts are used a lot if they're shooting from the screen out to check with user input, or from one physics object to another to see if how close they are if they're in contact with something. So it looks like there's two checks. In either case, if both are coming back as true, then we know that that wheel is grounded. So the one thing is this integer, or this variable, this integer is declared in the fixed update, and I think we'll have access to it in move vehicle, although it's a separate. No, we're not because it's going to be separate. Where is it? It's used right here. Oh, ground percent. Oh, you're right. Calculate how grounded we are. So ground percent. Let me go see where this is declared. And also, if coding is like brand new to you, you know, you can. That's obviously why this class is like as much as you want to deal with content or coding. So if what I'm currently doing is too overwhelming or too advanced for you in coding, you know, it's okay. I'm just I just picking different parts of game production. Previously, I was doing like particle systems or meshes, mesh renderers, and talking a little bit about materials. And right now, I'm just talking a little bit about coding. So you kind of get a whole flavor of the whole game development cycle at hopefully a level that's relatable to. In either case, I wanted to check where ground percent is declared, and it looks like it's declared up in stats, and stats is public. So I think if within my method, I could say stats dot ground percent. Oh, and we have air percent too. That's interesting. So if I say stats dot ground percent down in our method, I can access how much of our ground percentage we're at. So let's go take a look at that. So down in move vehicle, I'm gonna go debug out. Sorry, that shouldn't be. So stats, right, is a struct data structure that contains many structures, and I don't know, was declared somewhere. Hold on a second. Let me read the code for a second. Oh, arcade cart stats, m final stats. All right. So it looks like this is the struct. Maybe. Let me read the code a little bit. So it's got our steering, our braking, all these variables that we can access, but not sure if we go back to that fixed update. So this is where my ground percents get. Ah, here we go. Previous m equals this. Basically, I'm trying to find a variable that I can access in our move method because variables are scoped. So in each class, you can have like global or local variables. But I don't think I can. I don't even think this okay. Maybe I can access this float ground percent. Oh, my bad. It was outside stats. I thought it was within the stat structure. Okay, it is within the arcade cart class. It's just underneath the struct. Here's ground percent. Oh, okay. So I think I'm good actually. I can. Oops, what did I do? I didn't copy. I cut it. Copy. All right. So I'm going to go back into our move. And I'm just going to print out ground percent. So if I hover over it, it's arcade cart ground percent. It looks like I have access to it. So if you notice here, you have a get, a public get, and a private set. So I can't change it. But I should be able to access it. So let's take a look. So basically, I should get printouts of what the current state of our ground check is. One. You notice that we're getting it in our fixed update loops are running constantly. We're always getting a one. So that means let me try and hit something. Okay. See, I hit the wall. I got like a quarter, a zero. So one wheel's on the ground for a very brief moment for 9 frames. I had no wheels on the ground. And for 10 frames, I had 2 wheels. And then I went back to 3 wheels and got back to 4 wheels. So I can use this. So basically what we want to say is, um, so I wonder if I have to read the rest or if I'll just gonna add and accelerate. So I can do a check. Eventually, I can do something like if ground percent, is greater than zero, meaning at least one wheel's on the ground, um, and it's the first frame of jump being true, then add vertical acceleration, and then just let gravity take me back down. So this is kind of like my pseudo code where I'm eventually going to get to. So jump works, ground percent works. So I have my variables I need to have a basic jump. Now I'm just concerned that since all this type of physics calculations is going on in here, that if I were to add, um, just if I just say adds, some positive y acceleration to this rigid body, that it might get overwritten later on. Um, so I'm just going to read through the code for just a little bit and just see where I might add this. So, so faster. So new velocity, we got our current velocity plus movement times our fixed times. That's common. So basically, what's this movement here? So vector 3 movement, take your forward direction times acceleration input times the final acceleration times if there's a collision and if we're on the ground, then times it by one, else times it by zero. This is like a fancy if else statement. It's called ternary. So basically, do we multiply this whole thing by one or zero based on what this if check is? Um, so it looks like I might be adding. No, I don't want to add to the final velocity. I want to add some acceleration after they do their check. If we're on the ground and we're over max speed, then we're going to clamp the magnitude of our speed. So it looks like oh, if our wheels, if some of our wheels are on the ground and however this variable says that we're in the air, we do our jump VFX because we're in some type of drift mode. Is that drift? This whole thing is drift. Rotate. Hmm. There's a lot of checking down here at the end based on drifting and collisions. I might just add to this. Let me see where this is being used. I might just add some acceleration somewhere up at the top part of the movement script and just see how it kind of changes things. Just click play and just see if you're able to jump or if like something is kind of messing with it later on in the move script. But That's just being used here. So vector 3. Acceleration. All right. So it looks like movement is being added as a type of. Okay, it's interesting that they separated out the y component. So this would be the velocity, the actual speed of the cart, and this line of code is just setting the y component to the rigid body velocity of y. I would do that. So rigid body velocity. Current speed. We're taking the magnitude, so the size of the velocity, just not thinking about its direction. We're putting it to current speed divided by whatever the max speed can be. Then we get our acceleration ramp t from that. Then it's getting plugged back into our final acceleration here, which is being used here. All right, I'm just gonna try an experiment just to say something like trying to keep track of jump. So basically, I'm going to say I'm going to put a global. I'm going to make a global variable. Something like I'm going to put it right here for now. Just say I'm going to make it private. Just it's only accessible in this class. I'm going to say something like has jumped. Set the default to false. Now the reason I'm gonna use this bool down later on. So basically I'm gonna say if we're no not has, I'm gonna say something like currently currently jumping or something like this. All right. So if I go down into the move, I'm going to say something like if jump and ground percent is greater than 0. So meaning if I'm currently holding down the space bar and at least one wheel's on the ground, I can check to say, yeah, and then I'll say, and not currently jumping. Then I'll say currently jumping equals true. And I'm gonna make one more global variable. I don't know if I feel like making it local right now. I can always optimize later. So I'm gonna make a private float, call it like y velocity. I'm just gonna make it 0f for now. So basically y yeah, I'll just say jump velocity. So I'll come down, back down into our method. And where it was just, all I want to just try right now is I'm just going to add to the y's here. I'm just going to add this jump velocity. So right now it's 0, so it's not going to do anything, right? So whatever this equation was normally doing, it's going to do the same thing because this is 0. So all I'm going to say is if I'm jumping, I'll just say jump velocity equals, I don't know, something crazy right now. Hopefully that'll get some type of impact of 100. Now, I need to not jump after this, basically. So, um, basically, this is saying I'm currently jumping and I have a velocity. I want to add this 100 instead of a 0 down here. So, what I can do is all the way at the bottom, after all the calculations said and done, let me see where's move vehicle. What I'll do is I'm just gonna hold on to that bracket and move down. Okay, so this is the bottom of our method, right? So a whole bunch of stuff is done. It actually calls this other method. I'm just gonna put some more stuff way down here, but I'll just say it's the jump feature just because it gets so lost down here. I'll just put reset jump velocity back to 0, and I'll say currently jumping equals false. So we're done with our calculation. I can set this back to false. Now, what should happen is we should be lifted off the ground. Who knows? Maybe not by then, but what I'm hoping in this code is that it gives us some push in the positive y direction. And I'm hoping that, yes, this will be back to um, becoming false, um, which might be a problem, but I'm going to hope that, and yes, my finger will still be down on the space bar, so this will be true. But I'm going to hope that all four of the wheels are off the ground, so this will make our if statement false, and we won't do this again. But I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts to this method, so I'm just going to try something just to see if I actually am impacting the rigid body if I'm adding some velocity to it in the positive y direction. Oh, nice. All right, so it worked, or at least a very rudimentary jump, and it looks like the jump VFX like a dust happens. So it's a pretty high jump, but it's pretty crappy. Like it kind of kills your forward momentum. Um, but cool. I was kind of thinking that there'd be a lot more checks going on and messing around with the velocity later on in that move method that a jump wouldn't be that straightforward. Now, obviously, this probably isn't the jump that you want. Um, but at least I'm up off the ground and I'm holding down the space bar. And this is interesting. I get this kind of hopping going as I'm holding down the space bar. So again, maybe this is good, maybe not. It depends on whatever it is that you're trying to do. There is no right answer. It's whatever your design doc is trying to say to do. But what I don't like, so there's some things I can look at improving now at this point. One is okay, there's this repeated jump happening. At least I'm not jumping while I'm up in the air. So what might happen is if I'm not even checking this stuff at all, if I'm just saying if the jump button is down, just give a velocity to it, I'll probably just start flying off into space. Just like every fixed update loop. It's just saying that my rule is never being used. But it's okay because I just commented out some code. In this situation, I think I'll just keep adding positive Y. I'll start flying. Yeah, it's breaking the camera, but I'm like flying off. All right. So if I release, I should eventually come back down into the ground. Maybe I've been flying too high. Where is the cart? Just see if I can find him. Yeah, it's completely. I've added way too much thrust. He's just going. So just to show you that this is what might happen. But with these checks, actually, I got a pretty good jump going. I just don't like how the cart kind of loses its forward momentum. Um, so to account for that, um, maybe um, this movement factor. Let's see. So y velocity, but um, he like once his wheels get off the ground, he like because we're dealing with velocity, not acceleration. Okay, this is just the way that the move system is working. Is that basically the wheels have to always be on the ground to give it forward thrust, um, and there's no idea. So they're not using the idea of acceleration. They're kind of adding velocity to the character only as he's touching the ground. So once you stop touching the ground, you have like your velocity goes to like zero because they're not really using the acceleration component of physics as normally intended. Um, so what might happen is I might I might do this check later on. Um, I might do this check. I'm going to get rid of all this junk up here. That's my notes. I'm going to come down here and actually, right before I add to the Y, I'm going to do the check here. All right. And um, instead of basically, I want to know if the wheels aren't touching the ground anymore. I want to remember my previous velocity and still keep that. And then if the wheels touch, I want to get okay. So yeah, I might do that. I might go back up to the top. So I'm just working with the way that the code is. It's definitely doing. They're definitely doing a logic that's different than the basic physics system. So basically, if we just jump, if I'm holding jump and I'm on the ground, and I'm currently not jumping, I'll say currently jumping is true, and I'm gonna store. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna grab its current velocity. Okay, so I'm going to take another global variable, and I'm going to remember my velocity before I left ground, and I'm just going to keep using that for now. So I'll say private vector 3, previous velocity, and to start with, it'll be a 0 vector. So this is, I don't have to create a new data structure. There's a built-in one. Just give me 3 zeros. It's just basically saying it's empty, right? So I'm going to record previous velocity every time we go through our move method so that I can make use of it whenever the fact that we do jump. All right. So I'm pretty sure I'm in move. Yes. And so when do I want to grab my velocity? So I'm going to remember here this new velocity gets created and I mess with the y here. I'm just going to say here, if I'm not currently jumping, then I'm going to record it. Previous velocity equals new velocity. All right. Before I start messing with it, I just want to make a recording of it because I'm going to use it. So at some point, we're looping through here. We just keep remembering what the new velocity is, right? I'm not going to worry about. It looks like they're clamping it and they're messing with it. I might store out what the velocity is. Maybe I can do it later on. But I'm going to get rid of. I can make that decision later on, basically. I am going to get rid of this and move it up. So I don't want to. Oh, I don't want to right away just zero that out. What I want to do is so do a check if um, we are jumping, right? We just left the ground, and our wheels start to touch again, and ground percent is greater than 0, meaning we're like touchdown. We're landing after the jump. This is where I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, hey, we're done jumping. Let's pull off the velocity. Let's say we're not jumping anymore. And do I want to do both checks? Maybe I'll just do an else if here. And otherwise, you could say else if we should check if should start jumping. Right? We'll do our jump. Now the benefit of doing it this way is that now when I go in, I should see should I start a jump or should I end a jump? Now this is good because I have a much more accurate reading on am I actually in a jump? Is this true or is this false? This only becomes true when we start, and this only becomes false right when we end. So if the wheels come and they start touching the ground, I don't need to mess around with the previous velocity anymore because the wheels are touching the ground, and that velocity component will come back. It'll start to be calculated again, and the vehicle will move on its own code. I don't need to do it, right? So um, if we're not jumping, I keep recording what the new velocity is, right? Um, and else, um, else, I'm going to plug in the previous velocity. I don't know. This will be interesting. Let's give it a go. I'm not really sure if it'll do what I want. I'm thinking I'm going to need another pool to wrap this up, but let's give it a go. If else, um, if let's record the previous velocity, else we are in a jump. Let's say our new velocity equals our previous velocity, our previous recording. Let's keep it moving, right? But there is one frame where I did want to add that y to it. So I think this is gonna add. I think I need to add a third bool, and like right in that one frame where I jump, we're gonna add that big batch of y. But let's see. I think this will turn me into a levitating. I think it'll keep adding an upwards thrust. Yeah. So there's only one frame where I want to add this. So for the first time, and then I want to turn it off. Okay. So let me just add one more bool. Then I think it should work pretty well. Okay. Private bool, something like first frame of jump. All right. False. So one more bool, and I think we can get our magic mixture working. So the way that the logic of their movement method is working, I think this will have the right mixture. Okay. So else, if we're jumping for the first time, we can also say this is the first frame of the jump, right? It's only set here the first time. Um, yep. And so I think if I just do one more check down here, say if first frame of the jump, then we do this, and then we set the first frame to false because we don't want to do it anymore. We want to wait until another jump to reset that. And if it's not the first frame, we just do what it was doing before we came along. All right, let's see what that does. I'm actually not even sure. Nice. Actually does actually works really well. I still have a lot of forward momentum as I'm jumping. Nice. So I'm now breaking the level because I'm jumping between the chorus, but that's whatever. That's regardless because that's another discussion, whatever it is you're trying to do. But all the drifting works. Yeah, it's actually a fun jump mechanic right now as it is. Now, if I do hold down the space bar, I do get this type of like bouncy jump, which maybe it's kind of interesting how it kind of dopes down. It's not as strong as it used to be. So that's actually kind of cool. You know, maybe like you just have a one jump. Oh, I think it broke it and stuck like on the rail. can't jump because technically, look, the wheels before the wheels are not touching the ground. So this is a new situation. Use case you have to be familiar with. Think about, oh, you can jump and put the middle section of your cart on a rail, and the tires actually aren't touching anything. But that's just it's just game programming. So a lot of QA testing. Anyway, you decide how you want to fix that. But that's kind of interesting. If you're hopping and your back wheel hits like a guardrail, you kind of do this like 360 spin. So cool. I'm just experimenting out the feature, but I'm holding down the space bar, and I get this kind of little jumpy thing. So if you didn't want that, that's like the next phase. But at least I got like, and you kind of have to settle down after you jump. Like I can hit jump pretty quick. Oh no, yeah, it actually works really well. I was surprised how far I got in this class. I thought it would be a lot scarier to get a pretty good feeling jump going, but I like it. Cool. Now I'm doing my little skating down the rail because it's actually kind of fun. It's fixable. I can't get off it. All right. So maybe I'll just go over what I did for the last 5 minutes. Is there any questions? That actually packed
I
out
think
a
I
lot
think
of
I
time.
missed like one or two spots of like things you were editing, but you're gonna post this as a video, right?
Yeah, yeah,
All
it's
right,
recording. Yeah,
awesome.
I'll just go
Yeah,
over. I'll just go over
yeah.
for
You
the
mind
last
showing
five
each
minutes.
place you edited like one more time, just so I can double check?
Yep.
Thank you.
So let's see what I start with. So I did mess around with the audio because it was blasting. So just be aware that you might want to mess around. Turn off the audio listener, you get a bunch of crap in the console. I turned off the Unity part of my audio mixing. I did some debug statements to be like, first off, is my theories of how this code is connecting up, is it true? Can I rely on my variables I'm creating? So, way back when in base input, I said I'm going to have a jump part of my input data, part of which is inherited by keyboard input, which now has a publicly exposed string called jump, and nobody changes it. Um, the point is that it's public because it's exposed in the inspector, and other developers can change it if they need to. But I'm like a solo developer. I didn't really need that part of the feature. But the point is that I'm saying, hey, the jump part of this input data structure is going to be input.get button, whatever the jump is. So that's where this jump name is coming in. And if you want to swap to another part of the input data structure, you would go in the inspector and write out a different name. But jump is mapped to spacebar as far as the input um, manager, which is over here, right? But spacebar works for me. So we're good. So at least I connected that all up. And then in Arcade Cart, what I did was I went to the top basically. I found a part. I know it's a very complicated script, and there's a lot going on. But in between these kind of structs they're creating up at the top, so that they're global variables accessed anywhere in the class for me, especially in the method of the move method. Anyway, I created a bool that let me know if I'm currently jumping, if it's the first frame of jumping, what the velocity of my jump should be, plus y upwards, how much velocity should I add, plus y, and a vector 3 of what the previous velocity of the cart was. And all this is I just put default values because they're not set yet. But four of these, right? So I'll just say jump feature. Then I'm only working within the move, whatever they called it, move vehicle. So this is the only place that the move vehicle method is being called. And I'm changing its call signature because there's another input parameter coming in for jump. So it's placed there. And in the actual method signature, say jump feature, and I'm going to put this up here because I did make a change. So I'm going to say that I put something here. Okay. And I did add a fourth input parameter called jump, right? So after all that is done, the actual bulk of what was done was this section here. So first, I do a check if I'm currently jumping and a wheel has touched the ground, then I know that I'm done jumping. So my jump velocity is 0, and my current jumping is false. Else, if the user is pressing jump and there is a wheel on the ground and we're currently not jumping, then I know that I can set currently jumping to true, that it is indeed the first frame of our jump, and I just added some jump velocity, which you can change these numbers. It's just, it worked for me. All right, I'm just going to copy this in case anything's done here. And then the next area I only worked in was right here. So I'm just reading it first before. Yeah. So it used to be just this line of code here. But what it's saying is if we're not jumping, I want to record what this new velocity is because at some point I'm going to keep recording it every loop, right? And then at some point I'm going to make use of it. I don't know when because I don't know when the user's going to jump. Else, that means we are in a jump and I want to update the velocity to that and use that old number because our wheels have left the ground. And by reading the code, I realized they're just adding velocity to the car as the wheels are touching the ground. So my jump was kind of static. You just go up and down, you wouldn't keep moving. So this is my way of keeping me moving. Once that check is done, I did another check.
Professor, quick question. If you were to add, like, for new velocity equals old velocity times, like, if you do, like, times 0.75, that would keep them moving forward but reduce the speed that they move while they jump, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yep. You can multiply it by a number, a percentage less than one. And if you set up your code, you could, like, every frame, it'll shrink. So if you keep updating that value, say you multiply it by zero point 0.9, so every frame that they're jumping, it gets reduced 10%. So you kind of,
Oh,
your
I actually
momentum
just got
slows
an
down.
error because old velocity is a vector 3. So how would you modify this since it's a vector 3 and it's not compatible with a double?
Um, velocities, I'm pretty sure. Well, I thought you could do that, but you could just say do vector 3 and then just multiply each part. So it'd be previous velocity x, comma. You could take their components and scale them down. So this would be y, and this would be c. So you could do something like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So is it lowercase? Let's see. What's the class? Oh, vector 3. Um, cannot convert del. Oh, my bad. Float. F, F, and F. There you go. So this is just saying take the X, Y, and Z and scale them down basically 20%, scale them down to 80%, and make a new vector and put that into our new velocity. But anyway, the next check is if you do that though, you might want to shrink it every frame. So like kind of keep slowing it down as it's in the air. So what you might want to do, I want to say, actually just do something like this. Take the previous values and keep shrinking them in. So if you do something like this, every time this else statement is hit, it'll take the previous velocity from last frame. That's pretty hard shrinking. You might just shrink it by 5% because every frame is
Wait, wouldn't that cause it to rapidly slow down as it's landing?
while you're in the jump. We are in the
Yeah,
jump.
so you'd like feather fall, basically.
No, not this. Doesn't mess with the up and down. This will just whatever your velocity. Because I'm adding, right? Because I added the velocity here. It might make you fall down quicker. I mean, if you want to, then just keep y the same, and whatever direction you go in X and Z will just start to slow down as you're moving up in the air. But in either case, every frame that you're in a jump, we shrink our velocity X and Z so that we slow down slowly. We lose our velocity as we're in the air. So that's how you do this.
All right, thank you.
Yep. So if we're in the first frame of our jump, that's where we add that initial Y thrust. And this is the original code that they were doing. And who knows why I wasn't the original developer, but I just tried adding to that Y velocity. It was exposed and it happened to work for me. And I don't want to do that any more than once. So I make that bool false. Else, we do what they were already doing in their code. And since I just changed that other stuff, I'll just do a quick test and then I'll just end class. So he starts stopping by pretty quickly. So I'll just increase this back to, I'll pump it up, maybe 9.9. Try it again. I kind of liked how much he was moving in the air. I might actually just not limit that velocity, but at least we're testing, do what you're trying to get close to. So yeah, I can feel it. I don't know if it's coming across, but he's still moving forward. But I can tell toward the end of the jump, he's starting to slow down. It's not as springy
Yeah, I
as it
prefer the
was
original.
last time.
Yeah,
Sure.
I definitely prefer the original. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So that's it for this class. Um, and if you have any suggestions or something for Friday, you can let me know. Always have a good one.